The moment the notification lit up my phone screen, I was blowing out the candles on my birthday cake. Laughter filled the air as my friends raised their glasses to celebrate yet another year of my life. But as soon as I saw his name appear, everything else seemed to fade into the background. My name's Eleanor, and at 39, I just received the cruelest message I could have ever imagined. Hey, Eleanor, just being honest with you. I found someone better, someone younger, hotter, honestly, an upgrade. I transferred our money into my personal account. It felt fair since I was the one making most of it anyway. No hard feelings. Enjoy your birthday. The words burned through me like a neon sign flashing betrayal. I didn't react, at least not outwardly. No trembling hands, no shocked gasp, no tears welling up in my eyes. If anyone noticed something off, it was probably just the way I suddenly straightened up, the sharpness creeping into my smile where there used to be softness. Congrats, I typed back. One word, nothing more. No anger, no desperation, just a simple, quiet reply. What Victor didn't realize, what he never stopped to consider with his inflated ego, was that I had been paying attention for months. Victor had always been full of himself, and at first it was part of his charm. His confidence, his smooth talking, the way he could make anything seem like it was his idea, even when it wasn't. But slowly, things began to shift. The late nights at work suddenly became more frequent, even though his job didn't require overtime. His phone was always face down when we were together. He'd roll his eyes when I'd talk about the future, as if I was naive to think we had one. Then came the money. At first, it was small things. Delayed Venmo payments, a sudden concern over shared expenses when he used to pay for dinner without question. Then last month, it escalated. He suggested we move our savings into an account under his name. It's just easier that way, he'd said, brushing the idea off with a careless wave. I'm better with money, babe. I'll make sure we're set. I smiled, nodded, and let him think he'd convinced me. That same afternoon, I walked into my bank and opened a new account. I didn't drain our joint savings, not entirely. That would have been too obvious. Instead, I quietly moved just enough over time that he wouldn't catch on. I transferred my share into the new account, leaving just enough behind to keep up appearances. And now, on my birthday, I knew exactly what had happened. Victor thought he had won. He believed he had taken everything and left me with nothing. But little did he know, he was about to learn a hard lesson about just how wrong he was. 1 hour after his message, my phone buzzed again. This time, a message from a mutual friend. Eleanor, I don't know how to say this, but Victor just posted his new girlfriend on Instagram. He literally wrote, "The glow-up is real. Out with the old, in with the new." I'm so furious for you. I clicked the link, and there he was, posing in a hotel suite, his arm wrapped around a woman who couldn't have been older than 22. Long legs, perfect hair, the kind of effortless beauty that makes people take a second look. Harper. The same Harper he'd told me was just a friend. The same Harper he had insisted was annoying and immature. But there she was, clinging to him like a prize he had just won. The comments were savage. Okay, King. Big upgrade. Damn, my guy just went from economy to first class. Rip to the ex, she must be crying. How wrong they were. I wasn't crying. I was waiting. Victor thought he had outsmarted me. He expected me to do what every other woman in his past had done, fall apart, beg for closure, spiral into heartbreak. But what he didn't understand is that arrogant men always underestimate the women they betray. He'd forgotten whose name was on the lease for our apartment. He'd forgotten whose credit card he'd been swiping for the last 6 months. He had no idea that I was the one who had been building our savings while he'd only ever contributed words, not numbers. I stared at my phone, at the texts, the photos, the comments meant to humiliate me, and I smiled. Victor had made the first move, but I was about to make the final one. Victor thought he'd already won. He assumed he had taken everything, the money, the power, the upper hand. But in reality, what he'd done was set himself up for a fall so spectacular, even he wouldn't see it coming. The first domino was about to fall in 3, 2, 1. The moment I got home, I changed the locks. Victor had never bothered to put his name on the lease. It had always been my apartment, my responsibility, my name on all the important documents. "Babe, why do all that paperwork? You're way better at it than I am," he'd said when we first moved in. And now that laziness was going to cost him. The landlord didn't hesitate when I called to change the locks. "You're the only one on the lease, Eleanor. You can do whatever you want." By midnight, Victor no longer had a home to return to. At 1 a.m., I got the first sign that reality was sinking in. A single text from Victor. "Hey, super weird, but I think my key isn't working. Can you let me in?" I let the message sit there, read but unanswered. 15 minutes later, another one. Eleanor, what's going on? I need to grab some of my stuff." I still didn't say a word because Victor's stuff, the suits, the watches, the sneakers he spent a fortune on but never bothered to take care of, was already packed into trash bags and sitting in the hallway. When he tried to return to his old life, he'd find himself locked out, staring at his belongings like a stranger on the curb. But this was only the beginning. The next morning, at 8 a.m., I made a call to our bank. "Hi, I need to report fraudulent activity on my joint account." The customer service rep was polite but firm. "What kind of fraudulent activity, ma'am?" I took a deep breath, preparing myself to say the words that would turn Victor's world upside down. "Money was withdrawn without my permission, and I have text message proof that my ex took the funds maliciously." There was a pause. "Would you be able to forward those messages to our fraud department?" "Of course," I replied, already sending the proof. By 9:30 a.m., Victor's personal bank account, the one he'd proudly moved all our money into, was frozen pending an investigation. The next message from Victor came like clockwork. "Eleanor, WTF did you do? My bank account is locked. I can't access anything." I took a sip of my morning coffee before replying with a casual tone. "Huh? Weird. Maybe you should call your bank." I could only imagine what that call had been like. The moment the bank representative explained that his account was frozen due to a fraud complaint and that he wouldn't be able to access a single cent until the issue was resolved, I imagined Victor's world slowly crumbling around him. The money he thought was securely tucked away wasn't as safe as he'd believed. He was probably realizing that his grand upgrade wasn't going as planned, and Harper's luxury vacation dreams had just crashed and burned. I wasn't the fool he thought I was. Victor had booked a rental car for his trip with Harper. Of course, it was a flashy convertible. I knew this because I'd seen the confirmation email pop up on our shared iPad weeks ago. And guess which credit card he used? Mine. He had left the card details saved in the system, thinking I wouldn't notice. At 10 a.m., I made my second phone call of the day. "Hi, I need to report an unauthorized transaction on my credit card." By noon, the rental car had been canceled. Just like that, Victor and Harper had no way to get around for their supposed better life. At exactly 12:17 p.m., my phone rang. "Victor." I let it go to voicemail. Then another call and another. By the fifth attempt, I finally answered. "Eleanor, you need to fix this. My bank's frozen, my rental's canceled, my stuff is in trash bags outside the apartment. You've made your point, okay?" I smiled, twirling my coffee spoon between my fingers. "Oh, Victor, I haven't even started." I could hear it in his voice, feel it in his texts, the unraveling. But I wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. Because what's the point of revenge if the person who betrayed you doesn't fully understand the depth of their mistake? I was going to make sure Victor felt every bit of the consequences he had brought upon himself. And the best part? He still had no idea how deep the trap had been set. Victor's next brilliant move? Booking a high-end hotel suite for himself and Harper. A 5-star luxury room with ocean views, a private balcony. A fantasy trip meant to be the cherry on top of his upgrade to a better life. Too bad he didn't pay attention to the fine print. When he transferred all our money into his personal account, and that account got frozen, the pending hotel charges bounced. At exactly 3 p.m., Victor and Harper arrived at the hotel, dressed for a vacation they could no longer afford. I wish I could have seen his face when the receptionist politely told him, "I'm sorry, sir, but your payment was declined. Unfortunately, we've had to release your reservation." Harper must have been thrilled, because half an hour later, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I knew exactly who it was. I answered, keeping my voice light. "Hello?" There was a brief silence before Harper spoke, her voice tight with frustration. Eleanor, hey, look, I know things are weird between us, but… I didn't let her finish. Harper, how's that upgrade treating you? There was a sharp breath from her side of the line, followed by silence. I just need to know if there's something we can do to fix this. Victor said you froze his account. I couldn't help but laugh. Victor said that, did he? And did he also mention how he stole money that wasn't his? Or how he left me on my birthday like a coward? Harper exhaled sharply. Look, I didn't know any of that, okay? I just thought… I cut her off again. You just thought he was an innocent, misunderstood guy who needed saving? Let me guess. He told you I was cold, controlling, that I didn't support his dreams? The silence on the other end told me everything I needed to know. Harper was finally realizing, too late, that she had been played. While Victor scrambled to figure out how to pay for a hotel he couldn't afford, the internet was having a field day. Victor, being the overconfident social media-obsessed idiot that he was, had posted about his new life way too soon, and people noticed. The comments flooded in. Damn, bro. Flex too early, Elmo. Imagine leaving your girl for an upgrade just to go broke in 24 hours. Nah, karma came with express delivery on this one. Even people who didn't know me personally were ripping into him. Everything Victor had so confidently taken for himself was slipping away, and I was watching it unravel piece by piece. His boss saw it too. At 4:45 p.m., my phone vibrated once again. Victor. I picked up, eager to hear him squirm. Eleanor, you need to stop this, he began, his voice low and controlled, though I could tell he was struggling to keep his composure. I smiled. Stop what? You know exactly what, he snapped. My boss called me today. I feigned surprise. Oh? Why would he do that? Victor let out a bitter laugh. Because apparently some people at work saw my Instagram post, and now HR is involved. I couldn't help but smirk. That's right, I said, enjoying his discomfort. His company had a strict non-fraternization policy, and Victor had been dating a subordinate. Harper wasn't just some random girl, she was a junior staff member at his firm. Now corporate has some questions. Victor thought he was calling to intimidate me, to make me back off. He still didn't get it. He had already lost. So, I spelled it out for him. Victor, let's get something straight. I didn't do anything to you. You did this to yourself. You stole our money. You played yourself. You lost control the moment you underestimated me. His breathing hitched. Eleanor. No, Victor. You don't swear to God. You swear to yourself that next time you won't be so stupid. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have plans. Enjoy your better life, if you can still afford it. And with that, I hung up. His calls kept coming, but I never answered. Victor was losing control. No money, no hotel, no car, no apartment. And now, no job security either. But Victor, he wasn't the type to go down quietly. No, he was the kind of guy who'd set himself on fire just to feel like he was still in control. So, the next thing he did was the dumbest move of all. At 9 a.m. the following morning, I woke up to a knock at my door. Not a text, not a call, a knock. Through the peephole, I saw a uniform. Eleanor Walker? The officer asked as I opened the door. I kept my face neutral. Yes, that's me. Is there a problem? We received a report about stolen property. Your ex-boyfriend, Victor Carter, claims that you unlawfully kept items that belonged to him. I almost laughed out loud. Did he now? He specifically mentioned some designer watches, a laptop, and a few suits, the officer continued. I stepped aside and gestured to the hallway where Victor's belongings, still packed in trash bags, sat. Everything he left behind is right there, untouched. He's welcome to take it if he actually comes to get it himself. The officer glanced at the bags, then back at me. So, you haven't prevented him from accessing his property? Nope, I replied. But I have prevented him from accessing my apartment, my money, and my life. Is that a crime? The officer smirked. Not at all, ma'am. Sounds like a civil matter, not a criminal one. We'll be closing this complaint. And just like that, Victor's pathetic attempt to intimidate me through law enforcement failed. Strike one. 2 hours later, my phone buzzed again. A call from a familiar number. Harper. I considered ignoring it, but curiosity got the better of me. Hello? I answered, keeping my tone light. Eleanor, I need to know the truth. Harper's voice came through, tight with frustration. How much of this did you plan? Plan? I repeated, feigning confusion. What exactly are you accusing me of? Oh, don't play dumb, she snapped. Victor's broke, his job's on the line, his accounts are frozen, and now he's crashing at my place like some homeless ex-frat boy. This isn't just bad luck, you did something. I smiled, swirling my coffee. Harper, let me ask you something. Did Victor ever tell you why he and I shared that bank account? Silence. Did he ever mention whose name is on the apartment lease, or how he's been living off my credit cards for months? More silence. Then, softly, almost bitterly, she said, No. He said you owed him that money, that you were controlling, that you'd never let him have any independence. I let out a short laugh. So, he convinced you that stealing from me was just him taking back control? Classic. Harper exhaled sharply. God, I was such an idiot. I didn't argue because, yeah, she kind of was. The final nail in Victor's coffin came 3 days later. His company officially fired him. Not just because of the workplace relationship scandal, though that was bad enough, but because HR had reviewed his expense reports. Turns out, Victor had been reimbursing himself for fake business dinners and expensing hotel stays that I hadn't even discovered yet. His arrogance wasn't just personal, it was professional suicide. And now? Now Victor was truly left with nothing. The last time Victor ever contacted me was a week later. His name popped up on my screen, but instead of rejecting the call, I answered. I wanted to hear it. Eleanor, he started, his voice hollow. You win. I didn't say anything. I let the words hang in the air. Victor sighed. I don't get it. You didn't even try to get back at me. You didn't scream. You didn't fight. You just let everything collapse around me. I took a deep breath, then finally spoke. Victor, you did all of this to yourself. I didn't have to fight you. I just had to watch you destroy yourself. There was silence. Then quietly, he said, I messed up, huh? I smiled. Yeah, you did. And then I hung up. I blocked his number and never looked back. Victor was gone, blocked, erased, a ghost in my past. And yet the ripples of his destruction kept spreading. But honestly, I didn't care. I had already moved on. But Victor? He was still learning the hard way that when you build your life on lies and arrogance, there's nothing left when it all comes crumbling down. It didn't take long for word to spread about his downfall. His old friends turned on him quicker than he could blink. His coworkers had already seen the warning signs before he was fired, and as for his family, that's where things got truly interesting. One afternoon, an unexpected text appeared on my phone. It was from Victor's mother, Dorothy. I hesitated before opening it, but curiosity got the best of me. Dorothy, the message read, I know you don't owe me anything, but can we talk? I stared at the screen for a moment before responding. Depends. Are you about to blame me for your son's life falling apart? Her reply was instant. Eleanor, I need to know the truth. He won't tell me anything, and all I hear are bits and pieces from other people. That made me pause. If his own mother wasn't defending him anymore, it meant Victor's charm had officially worn off. I agreed to meet her for coffee, not because I cared about Victor, but because I was curious to see just how much damage he had done to himself. When I walked into the cafe, Dorothy looked like she had aged 5 years in just a few weeks. Thank you for meeting me, she said, stirring her tea absent-mindedly. I need to understand how this happened. I shrugged. Your son overplayed his hand. He thought he was untouchable, that he was smarter than everyone else. Dorothy sighed. He told us you were controlling, that you tried to ruin him. I couldn't help but laugh, shaking my head. Tell me, Dorothy, what does controlling mean to Victor? Because as far as I can see, it means not letting him get away with everything he wants. She didn't argue. In fact, she looked guilty. We spoiled him, she confessed. We always bailed him out when he messed up. His dad and I thought we were helping, but now I see we just enabled him to believe he'd never face real consequences. I took a sip of my coffee, letting her words settle in. Then she asked the question I had been expecting. "Eleanor, is there any way back for him?" I thought for a moment before answering firmly, "Not until he realizes that he's the problem." The look on her face told me she already knew the answer. Over the following months, I heard bits and pieces of Victor's life. Apparently, he had moved back in with his parents, but this time they had set conditions. No free money, no reckless spending, and absolutely no more girlfriends using him as a stepping stone. It was ironic, though, because Harper had dumped him a week after our last conversation. Guess being the upgrade wasn't all it was cracked up to be when the money ran out. While Victor struggled to rebuild his life from scratch, I was thriving. I got promoted, traveled the world, started a side business, and for the first time in years, I felt completely free. No more waiting for someone to grow up, no more walking on eggshells, and definitely no more playing a game where the only way to win was to leave the table entirely. Almost a year later, I received a message request on social media. I almost ignored it, but then I saw the name, Victor. Curiosity got the best of me, and I clicked. "Hey, I know it's been a long time. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I screwed up. I should have treated you better. I don't expect anything, but I wanted you to know that." I stared at the message for a long moment before deleting it without responding. Some apologies come far too late. Victor was nothing more than a distant memory now, a lesson, a cautionary tale, a reminder of everything I would never tolerate again. While he was still trying to claw his way out of the mess he made, my life was only getting better. The best part? I didn't just survive his betrayal. I thrived because of it. A year had passed since that awful birthday, since the laughable text message where Victor declared he was upgrading his life at my expense. And when I looked at where we both had ended up, it was clear who had truly won. This was my reality now. My career had skyrocketed. That side business I started was thriving. And it turns out that when you remove a financial leech from your life, your bank account flourishes. I found love again, a real, mature, respectful relationship with someone who didn't need to tear me down to feel like a man. I was traveling the world, while Victor was stuck in his parents' basement. I was out there exploring cities, trying new foods, and finally living for myself. I didn't need revenge because my success spoke for itself. But life has a funny way of tying up loose ends. It happened at a mutual friend's wedding. I almost didn't go, but something told me it would be worth it. And I was right. The moment I walked in, I saw him, Victor, slumped at a table in the corner, nursing a cheap beer. He looked nothing like the man who once thought he was too good for me. His meticulously styled hair was now a mess, his expensive suits replaced by an ill-fitting dress shirt, and that signature confidence of his was gone. I almost felt bad for him. Almost. Until our eyes met, and I saw it. Regret. The kind of regret that settles deep in your bones when you realize you traded gold for tin foil. I gave him a small, polite smile, then turned away and walked off. I turned back to my date, the handsome, successful man sitting beside me, the one who actually respected me, and I let Victor watch as I moved on. Later that night, after the party had settled, Victor finally mustered up the courage to approach me. I saw him coming, but I pretended not to notice until he cleared his throat. "Eleanor, hey." I turned, giving him a polite, disinterested glance. "Victor," I said. He shifted awkwardly, his eyes scanning me before landing on my face. "You look good." I smirked. "I know." His lips pressed into a thin line. "I guess you heard about everything. My job, Harper, all of it?" I nodded. "Yep." He let out a bitter, short laugh. "Guess you're pretty happy about how things turned out, huh?" I tilted my head, considering my response before speaking the truth. "No, Victor. I don't think about you enough to be happy or unhappy about it." His face fell, and he looked almost defeated. I'm sorry, Eleanor, for everything. I wish I could take it back." I sighed, swirling my champagne in my glass. "You don't get it, do you?" He frowned, confused. "Get what?" I smiled, a little more gently now. "I don't need your apology. I never did. Because the second you walked away, you set me free." I gestured to the beautiful life I had built, my career, my happiness, the people I surrounded myself with. And now, I continued, I have everything I ever wanted. I let my gaze flicker over his worn-down appearance, lingering for just a moment. And you? You have exactly what you deserve. His jaw clenched, but he had nothing left to say because, deep down, he knew I was right. As I walked away, I felt lighter than I ever had before. Victor had been a part of my life once, but that's all he would ever be. A past mistake, a lesson learned. And the most ironic part? He once thought that leaving me would be his greatest success, but in reality, it was mine. Because I had won the only battle that ever mattered, the battle to live well, love better, and never settle for less again.